Hello and welcome to another episode, English podcast with Paul. Today I'm joined with the amazing Fabio. If you don't mind, Fabio, would you mind introducing yourself to the audience?
Sure. Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me. I'm Fabio. I'm from Italy. I'm a English teacher. I'm an English teacher and a writer. I'm a podcaster like you, Paul. And what else? I like telling stories. I like cats. I like doing these things here. Lives and creating videos and podcasts and articles. So this is who I am, Paul. I don't know if this introduction
I think
satisfies
that's
you or not.
perfect. I think
Is it
that's
perfect?
perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'll put a link below so people can find you on your channel and your website. But you've got a lot of great videos. I've spent a lot of time listening to your videos, and your voice is very interesting to listen to as well.
Oh,
Because
thank you.
some podcasters have kind of like a monotone, just goes on and on and on,
Mhm.
droning. But like Luke and yourself and hopefully me, sometimes you get this elevation of excitement and passion where you get faster. And then it drops back down to a bit of normal stuff. And it just goes up and down, which makes me feel more engaged and connected with you.
Could
So
it
so
be?
yeah.
Could it be? Could it be because I'm Italian? So I have maybe an Italian accent or an Italian tone or
Um
musicality. I don't know.
Well,
Maybe.
we get onto that in a moment. I've got some
Mm.
questions about
Sure.
musicality and that kind of sounds. But no, all in all, you've got so much going on. You've got so many amazing stories and lots of things to share and express to non-native English speakers and specifically writers. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm into writing. I started writing not a long time ago. Like I started my blog in 2021, and I then wrote a book
Yes, yes.
on
Well,
how I learned English.
tell
Yeah,
us about your book now. Tell us about that.
yeah. So my book is basically a collection of stories on how I learned English. I wrote this book because I wanted to show language learners of any language, not just people who are learning English, but you might be learning Japanese or another language. This book is written for language learners, and it's a book that tells stories on everything I did basically to to learn English. But I wrote it to rebel. Okay, so I wrote it. It's a rebellious book. No, it's I got frustrated because I'm a teacher and I spend time also watching videos and reading articles written by other people or made by other teachers. And sometimes I see teachers online or influencers or people who talk about language learning, and they give advice. They say, okay, you need to do this if you want to learn a language. This is the best way. um, and the advice that they give is perfectly valid. So they might say study grammar, or they might say don't study grammar. Both are, I think, valid pieces of advice. So because I studied grammar and I also didn't study grammar at the same time, so I did many things. Sorry. So when I hear absolute statements like to learn a language you must do this, or mm, have conversations, don't study the grammar, try to keep speaking, don't worry about mistakes. Okay, but the opposite is also true because I experienced it myself, and also okay because I studied how to teach languages. I got my qualifications as a teacher, blah blah blah. So I decided to write a book on how I did it, how I learned English, and in each chapter I tell you what I did. Each chapter ends with the same sentence, which is, this is how to learn a language. But in the
Ah.
next chapter, I contradict myself. So I tell you the opposite. So in one chapter, I tell you about my experience in London when I was in London, and I say that I started taking classes, English classes. I explain everything I did, and at the end of the chapter, I say, if you want to learn a language, you must take classes. You must have a teacher. Otherwise, how can you learn? A teacher is a person who will help you. Having a group of people that is there with you, studying the language, speaking, exchanging ideas. This is something that you must do if you want to learn a language. So this is the best method. But in the next chapter, I I basically stated the opposite. I tell you everything I did when I was in Australia, when I studied nothing. I mean, I didn't take any classes, I didn't have any private teachers, and I did everything by myself when I was in Australia. I explain everything I did. I explain um, the books that I read, the exercise, the practice activities that I would do, and I end the chapter by saying, "You don't need classes because it's language learning can happen anywhere. You don't need to go to London or to Portugal if you want to learn Portuguese. Learning is happens has no geographical boundaries. Learning
Yeah.
doesn't only happen in a class. So if you want to learn a language, this is the best method. Learn by yourself because you are in charge." And I keep contradicting myself throughout the whole book. And the message is that there's no one right way to learn a language. That you should question every piece of advice that you hear or see in order to become independent. Because once you're independent, you think with your own head, then you can select, you can say, okay, this works for me, this doesn't. For example, my teachers would say that they would often recommend having a vocabulary notebook. But a vocabulary notebook for me never worked. Like
Okay.
I didn't use vocabulary notebooks. Well, I mean, I tried, but I would write a couple of words or a list of words, but then I would forget about that notebook because I learned a lot by hearing. Hearing, listening was very helpful. So yeah, so the title of the book is Any Language You Want, 18 Contradicting Lessons for a New Kind of Language Learner. And this is the story. This is the story of it.
So, did you have a lot of fun making it? Because it does
A
sound
lot.
like fun saying one
Yeah.
thing and then contradicting it on
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
set.
Yeah. It was fun. Well, it was fun, first of all, because I was writing about myself. So it's writing about yourself is kind of easy because you know what happened to you, you know what thoughts you had. um, but it was challenging at times because I couldn't find a way to contradict myself, so I had to
Oh,
really think. I had to really think. um, but in the end I always found the opposite of the previous chapter.
yeah, yeah.
And that was fun. That was fun. I'm happy about this book. It's not going to be the next Harry Potter, of course. But um yeah,
Did you
it's
did you find it cathartic?
cathartic. In what ways, you mean?
So did you find it like healing for your soul or for your
Mm,
mentality to get it all out of your head, so it's all
mm,
out there and you could
mm.
go back to it and look at those lessons again?
Hmm. I think in a way I said everything I had to say about language learning. So
Yeah. So,
if
but
you
it
ask me a
felt good
question.
to get it out. It felt
Yeah,
good to
it
get
was
it out.
good. Yeah, it was good. It was good also because now I can refer to it Like when someone asks me a question, I could say, "Look, it's there in the book." Well, no, actually, no, I don't do that. That would be very. So I wouldn't answer your question. You will have to buy my book. No, of course not. But it was good to reflect back on what I did as a language learner, and I'm now happy that I wrote something that it's out there and people can use it to to improve whatever language they're learning. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. No, that sounds great. That sounds really good. Yeah, I kind of feel like I wish I did that now. But
Well,
so
you can write a book. I think anyone, when I thought about writing a book, I thought I would like I in the past I would have never thought that one day I would publish a book. That's what
yeah,
I'm trying to
yeah.
say,
No,
because it's very easy now to do it. Yeah.
it is, yeah, yeah. But you still got to put the work in. I
Mhm.
do make myself I'm not going to say a book, but I make myself small chapters or pamphlets. And I
Mm.
research a topic. I draw a few pictures just to help jog my memory, and then
Mhm.
I generally I just scribble it out, and then I laminate it and I keep it. So if I want to go back to a topic that what was the reason for that, or why does this happen, and I've already researched it, maybe like 2 years ago, I can right, I know. So I'm slowly building up my own kind of chapters for life lessons, really, and moving forward.
Nice.
So I got something to go back through. So yeah,
That's nice. Like a
okay,
sort of journal. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, kind of. All right, moving on a little bit. Tell me then about steroid stories.
Stolaroid Stories is my own podcast. I started it in 2021. At the time, I wanted to help learners improve their fluency through stories, through personal stories. So, my idea was to have students tell their own stories inspired by their own photos. I'm into photography. I like travel and street photography. So, as you know, every picture tells a story,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it was a way to personalize your language learning journey, because you can tell stories about any of the pictures that you have in your phone. So I started this podcast, Stolaroid. It was story plus Polaroid. So it was Stolaroid.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's
I
the
misheard that then because I thought it was like Stella, like international
no,
and
no, no, no,
Stellaroid and
no.
okay.
So I started the podcast by telling my own stories about my pictures, my
Mhm.
photos, and that was the idea. Then I started
Oh, that's good.
having guests. So I had teachers, English teachers at the beginning. Then I started interviewing other people not related to the language learning world, but I would try to make the topic, like I interviewed a U.S. Army veteran,
Wow.
and we talked about learning advice. It was learning advice from a U.S. Army veteran, because this guy um,
Ah,
was he fought in Iraq and in Afghanistan. So we talked about personal development, lesson learned while he was at war. And then I thought, okay, I want to have more of these conversations with interesting people, with people who have, a story to tell. So it became, it was not just language learning, it was like self improvement, storytelling. I don't know, something different. Then I started telling just stories about things that I would learn. Um, I don't know, maybe, or opinions about
yeah.
stuff. And after 100 episodes, now Stolaroid Stories, I'm on episode 132. Now I like to say that Stolar Stories is a creative space where you can hear stories about business, education, self improvement, and most importantly, writing. So
Oh,
it's not
wow.
just one thing. I don't want to make it one thing only. I know that a lot
Yeah,
of,
yeah. You don't want to
content.
pigeonhole yourself.
Mm, I do that with other things, with my articles, for example, but with Stolar Stories, I like having a chat and learning from my guests and
Yeah,
help
yeah.
others. Yeah. So this is what it is.
Wow. Okay. No, it's really good. It's really good. Excellent. Okay. Again, that's quite cathartic and healing of the soul to be able to get your voice out there and find other people to connect with that are just as interesting or have something to say. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So going back, you mentioned before that you'd lived in different countries. I know you said
Mhm,
you've lived in London, you've lived in Australia and New Zealand.
mhm.
Tell me a little bit about why and how you ended up moving to these different places and what you
Mhm.
liked about them or didn't like
Well,
from a language perspective.
yeah. Well, you need to read my book. No, I'm joking.
Okay. Okay.
No, 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 because in the first chapter I say why I moved to London, and basically it was because I couldn't stand my job. I really didn't like working where I was working. I was 24 and I already had a dead end job,
Ugh.
and I couldn't stand it. So
What
I
job was it?
I was in an office making
Ah,
drawings, technical drawings.
okay.
Awful,
Okay.
awful. Not, I mean, the job. Maybe someone here is working as in an office making drawings. I mean, it was awful for me.
For you. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'd always wanted to learn English because when I was 18, I remember being on a beach and I couldn't communicate with two German girls. It was like, what am I doing? Like, how come I couldn't only say very basic stuff. So I decided, okay, I need to go to a country where, okay, I can learn English, but also where my mom is not around. So I will have to rely on myself only. And I moved there with my girlfriend at the time, and I started working for Pret. Do you know Pret a Manger? Like,
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's where I started working. It's like what is it? Like a coffee shop, like a sandwich
Yeah,
shop.
yeah, yeah.
And I spent 1 year, 1.5 years there. Then I broke up with my girlfriend, and I decided, okay, if I survived in London, which, you know, it was challenging living in London, especially if you work for Pret only and you have that kind of jobs. Um, I thought, okay, where else can I go? I looked at the map, and at the beginning, I wanted to go to New Zealand, but not to New Zealand, sorry, to Canada. Canada.
Okay.
Um, then I realized that the visa, all the, uh, the the permits, all those things was a bit difficult. So I read that Australia was quite easy to get into. So I
Yeah.
applied for a working holiday visa and I moved to Australia. And I moved there alone. Then I spent 2 years there. I did all sorts of jobs. I studied English by myself, as I said before. I traveled. I was in a van like you, Paul. I traveled all around Australia in a van with my new girlfriend, my current girlfriend. Well, the woman I've been with for the past 10 years, and then our visa expired, and we thought, okay, what's next country? New Zealand, because it was like 2 hours by plane, 2 3 hours,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I moved to New Zealand. New Zealand, I became a teacher there. I started
Wow.
teaching English. And then, but the best part of this travel, this long trip around, the other side of the world, was in Southeast Asia, which is something that you saw as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I spent 6 months there without working, just backpacking around. We only planned, I remember, we had planned the first 2 days, and we didn't know, like, we had no plans
That's
at
the
all. We
best
just,
way.
that's the best way. Yeah.
Yeah.
We did lots of couch surfing. Do you remember? Do you know
Yeah, yeah.
couch
I had
surfing?
couch surfers at my
Nice,
place in Asia.
nice. Yeah. Best experience. Those 6 months were 6 months there in Southeast Asia, and also the experience in Australia for me.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
one
Okay.
of the best
So
times of my life. Yeah.
in regards to language learning and
Mm,
people around you and helping you and supporting you,
mhm,
which country were um, proactive and positive and supportive of you, and which countries were a little less so? Because from my experience, I find London a little bit
mm,
cold and sterile because there's so
mm.
many cultures and different people all in their own little bubble, in their own little world.
Yeah.
And so, what was
Yeah.
your feeling and your thoughts about like London and Australia and New Zealand?
Yeah. I remember when I was in London, I wanted to speak to native speakers of English as much as possible, but I I could not that I couldn't. I didn't have enough chances because everyone around me was from Poland, Italy, Spain, Hungary, Brazil, Colombia,
Mhm.
Japan, and I thought, well, I want the native speakers. Where are they? And I didn't have any native speaker friends there in London. I
Ah,
had
okay.
friends from all over the world. And now looking back, I'm like, what a stupid idea. Like I didn't need the native speakers to improve, and actually, that's how I improved, by speaking to the world in a way. But then in Australia, when I moved to Australia, I had a lot more contact with native speakers, and that was another way. Like, I think each country gave me something. London gave me this way of London made me discover English as a language, not as a boring school subject. Because I realized,
Okay.
okay,
Yeah.
I can use this language to make friends.
Yeah,
Something that
and the beauty that it's multicultural.
exactly,
So many
yeah,
different people in one place.
yeah. Australia gave me, I think, a little bit of an accent. Um, I love my favorite accent is the Australian one, the way they speak, the way they uh, the 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 even when they make a statement, the intonation goes up at the end. It sounds like they're asking you a question, like I don't know. Um, okay, I don't want to make impressions. And New Zealand gave me, well, the profession, because I became a teacher there, and that's where I
Yeah.
started teaching. And also the Kiwi accent is quite nice. Actually, it was the sexiest accent in the world in
Oh,
20
in a poll.
2020. Yeah, it was deemed
Ah,
the sexiest accent in the world according to the
okay.
Kiwis. No, according to I don't know who. So yeah, I think every country can give you, even Italy, my country, gave me a lot. Um,
Okay.
it's
Well,
who I am.
you just mentioned about teaching. So
Mm,
if this is a good point to move on a little bit
mhm.
from, because well, obviously we've got a bit of a time restrictions. Your no, I always say this wrong. Your pedagogy, your teaching um, uh, attitude, your teaching um, I don't know, theology,
Style,
your
yeah,
teaching style. Yes.
yeah. Sorry, is it not pedagogy, pedagogy, or
Yeah,
pedagogy.
I keep saying it wrong. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, my style. Um,
Yeah.
I'm correct. I'm correcting a native speaker here, so sorry.
That's fine.
My style. Well, my style now it's very much based on conversation. Um, to be honest, I don't have private students anymore, like where I speak to them, but I
Mm.
base everything on. I help students with writing. Not students. I want to help non-native English writers. Okay, I'm not.
Okay. Okay.
I don't do conversation classes anymore, but I teach in a university, and there I have classes, not individual classes, but I have like 15, 20 students in class, and
Yeah.
everything I do is based on stories, so personal stories and conversation. That's, I think, there's no best way, even though I can argue against that, um, to learn a language than personalizing the the language. So you
Yeah.
use the
Sure.
language to
Sure.
talk about yourself, to talk about your story, to tell stories, to not just to discuss something that it's in a textbook just because it's
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
textbook.
Yeah.
So I don't use textbooks unless I must, unless the director of studies says you must use this, otherwise this is the syllabus, this is the program, you must use this. So yeah, my style is very informal, as you can see. I'm not a big head, uh, big headed, what's the right word, Paul? Big headed, like
Yeah.
the
Big
someone
headed.
who big headed.
Has an
Okay.
ego. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wanted to. I mean, someone who like a super professional. Well, I am professional. I don't know what I'm saying. Like,
I think what you're trying to say is that you don't take it so seriously that it impedes your human interactions and
yeah,
your
exactly.
human approach.
Very laid back,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
informal. Because I still feel, as you can see, even though I'm qualified, I work in university, I still feel like I'm a learner of English, because I still learn English daily. I still discover new words, not as actively as I used to, but it's endless. Like it's
But
language learning.
you say that, I'm still learning English, and
Yeah.
I'm nearly 50 years old, and I have a book. But I know you said about you don't have a book, but I have a book where I write down new words, and I think I've
Huh.
heard that. Like Jordan Peterson or Neil deGrasse Tyson has said these words, and oh, that's a brilliant work. I like
Mm.
that word. Like I don't know kaleidoscope or smorgasbord. Some of these words I
Mm.
get quite excited about. So I try
Nice.
to put them into my repertoire, into my vocabulary. So,
That's great.
but
And
but what I
yeah,
really liked is what you said to on one of your podcasts. I think it was I think he's talking about Heather Long or one of the speaking coaches. She was really good. She was really nice to listen to. And I think you were talking about taking responsibility for learning the language yourself and finding the way that you learn best. I thought that
yeah,
was very, very
yeah,
poignant.
yeah. Because if you go online, if you go on YouTube, you go on blogs, you will see lots of advice, lots of tips, and everyone
Yeah,
is telling you what to do, how to do it. Um, but at the end of the day, these people don't know you. Like, I don't know you. I can speak into
that's
the
right.
camera and say, if you want to learn a language, do this, do that. It's better to do this, don't do that. But I don't know your own unique situation. So that's why you should question what I say. So if
Yeah,
you hear
yeah,
someone say, don't study grammar, well, question that. Is that true? Does that apply to you? Because maybe it doesn't. maybe it doesn't apply. Maybe you need grammar. Maybe you make so many mistakes that maybe you're fluent, but you make so many mistakes and you don't know why you make these mistakes. Studying grammar might give you the answer. So there's,
Yeah, yeah,
it's always, and this is true. I like to say that this is true in everything. Like it can apply to everything. Like, for example, um, how to be a content creator. What should you do? What could you do? What should you do to um, increase, to grow your audience? Well, you must have a newsletter, a private email list. Some people say, is that true? Does that apply to you? Do you think that you will like writing newsletters every week or every month to your audience? Maybe not. Maybe you like making videos. So, how about a video newsletter? So, as you can see, I'm not saying that we shouldn't trust the experts. I would never question, well, not never, but I wouldn't question what my doctor says because I have no knowledge about medicine, even though sometimes I question that. So, it's not about not trusting the experts, but it's more like think with your own head, especially when it comes to learning, and see what works. Because once you find what works, I found what worked for me, you can do the same. But it's not, don't expect the best, the perfect recipe. So here is the method for you. Now I'm going to make a video on YouTube. I'm going to deliver this best method to you and do everything that I say in this video. But I'm sure that
yeah,
people know this, people, learners
yeah,
who
yeah.
have
They
experience,
know.
they know this. It's just a
Yeah,
reminder. This is nothing new. I'm just reminding that
yeah,
if they want
yeah.
to keep improving, well, maybe they need to try something else. Maybe they should stop listening to that YouTuber that says that they must learn grammar and do and use the
Yeah, I
language,
agree.
or do the opposite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I agree. One thing I do though is I always try to inspire people to have fun and laugh and
Yeah.
joke and smile and enjoy it. There's no point in grinding over and over and over an aspect of English that you don't enjoy. If you don't like Shakespeare, fine, you don't like Shakespeare. But if you like Friends TV show, great, or The Simpsons, or
Ah,
even
my
if it's
favorite.
just
Yeah.
yeah, or if it's just Peppa Pig, it's something. But I think you've got to want to enjoy it, or you've got to like it at the very least.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah.
But I'm sure in your book you could contradict that.
To have fun. Did I mention having fun? I did, but I can't. I don't think I don't think I contradict having fun. Uh, no, I don't think so. How can you contradict that? Like to learn a language, you must be bored. No.
Well, but back in the day where when they did maths and they did, for example, times tables, you might not enjoy learning times tables,
Mm,
but doing it by root or over and over and over, two times two, four times, again and again and again and again for like a year, would have still got it in your brain, even if you didn't enjoy it. So
yeah.
maybe an argument
Yeah.
could be made for that. Okay,
Yeah.
so one of my questions I had there was I myself love the variety of English language, uh, and in England, the moment you speak, well, no, not just England, anywhere where
Mm,
you speak English, um, many people can tell a lot about you just from the way you speak. And we talked
mhm,
about this last time in our conversation that if you speak normally somebody else could tell whether you're from a particular part of the country, and then they could tell
mm,
how well you're educated and even take a good guess at your financial background. So it's almost like a classist society.
mm,
Like if you spoke RP. received pronunciation and you spoke like somebody from the BBC, or
Yeah.
David Attenborough, or something, compared to somebody that's more colloquial, like a Welsh person, or like me, somebody from Somerset, from the West Country. So yeah, I think it's very interesting that it's like breadcrumbs. So, for example, if I
Mm.
go to Italy and I bump into another English, I hear another English person and go, oh, where? Oh, I hear an English person. Where are they from? And the more you listen to that person chatting away in English to whoever, you slowly trying to work out, right, okay, so they're from the north of the country. They're talking about this kind of, I don't know, words that are associated with this industry, maybe medicine, or you might think, oh, they're intoxicated a little bit, so some of the language is a bit colorful, and you can make up, like a whole idea of a profile of a person just by the language they use, and their kind of narrative. So
Mhm.
this person might be speaking a lot about, I don't know, information technology within, say, the NHS. So you'd hear a few keywords that you could pinpoint and put together. And I think that's
Mhm.
really interesting how you kind of become a detective of trying to profile this person by their background, where they're from, their education, the industry. And I think that's really rich and enjoyable, that in a foreign country you can, your ears listen out for that. Do you
Mm.
do you do the same kind of thing in Italian? Can you hear whether somebody is, maybe of a different class, of financial class or education class? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So it's,
In Italy, we've got so many dialects and so many varieties of Italian that if you study Italian, I'm sorry for you because then you go to Naples, you go to Rome, you go to Milan, you go to Sicily, and you're like, is this Italian? What did they teach me in school, or what did my teacher, what? Because Italy was unified fairly recently in
okay.
18. Oh my God, what a shame! I don't even know this.
Your history.
1850. Okay, in the 19th century, and before it was like it was divided into little countries. Okay, so everyone was from um, different parts, and also Italy was not invaded, but it was got influenced by the Arabs, by the Greeks, by the Romans, uh, by the Germans, even in the north. So the Italian that we speak is very, what's the word, variegated. So it's I don't think we have a standard way to speak Italian.
Oh,
Everyone, like, we can even tell if a person is from the next town.
yeah,
So it's
yeah, okay.
it's so
But
it's
with
so
English, you
multidimensional. Yeah,
yeah, okay, okay. But with English, you've got like Canadians, Americans, Australians, New Zealanders. Do
yeah.
you have similarities like Italians from America that speak American Italian, or people from other countries with their own um, group of Italian people? Say, I don't know, say in China is. I wonder if in China there's a group of Italian people, or in
No,
London
well, in
there must be
America,
London. There must be groups of Italians that have a different accent completely from the rest of Italy.
but Italy, Italian is spoken in Italy, and then the second country I think is Argentina, where there's a
Oh,
very big Italian community there.
okay.
And then all the other Italians around the world are basically experts or migrants,
Okay,
migrants,
so you could
immigrants.
tell.
Yeah.
You'd be able to
I
tell whether they're from Argentina speaking Italian or whether they're
No,
from.
no, no, no.
Ah,
I wouldn't be able to tell. I wouldn't be able to tell. When I was in Australia, I met many um, Australians Italian. So they were their parents were from Italy, but they were born there in Australia,
okay.
and they spoke the dialect. So they spoke the dialect from Calabria, which is a region in the south. Um, so they had an accent, a regional accent, but not an Italian Australian accent. So they
Right.
spoke either
Okay.
Italian with that variety of
Yeah, yeah.
dialect, or English, so Australian fluent English.
Okay. Okay.
There is actually a comedian, an Australian comedian who's half Italian, and he makes jokes about this. Like he talks about his grandmother who's from Australia, who's from Calabria. If you want, I can send you the link. It's quite fun to
Yeah, that,
watch,
that that sounds
especially
good.
especially if you're Italian. Yeah,
Okay. So you can tell the accent and the region they're from
yeah.
into. But what about other things
Yeah.
like maybe their educational background and or maybe their financial background? Could you tell that from the way they spoke?
I guess I could. Yeah, I could definitely recognize if a person is from the middle class, or if they are uneducated.
Yeah.
But
Okay, that's good.
sometimes I don't know. To be honest, I don't pay too much attention um, on this. But I guess I could. I mean, I can tell if someone is if you hear a teenager from Milan, you can
Yeah.
tell he's a
Yeah.
teenager
Okay.
from Milan.
This type of words they would use.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
exactly. Word
But
slang. Yeah.
yeah, but in the UK,
Hmm.
you get treated differently the way you speak. So if you spoke like a teenager, somebody would treat you like so if you were on the phone and you couldn't see them. But if you spoke,
Hmm.
say, with RP on the telephone, then you would get a much better response. So if you were
Hmm.
ringing up, for example, a department store, say you're ringing up John Lewis, and you said, "Oh, good afternoon, how are you?" Well, I would like to ring up to say about the clothes I bought recently were not to my liking. You would get a much different response to if you rung up from somebody that's less educated and was like, "Hello? Yeah, them clothes, they blimmin' awful. I don't like them. They're rubbish, blah, blah, blah." So you get a very different response. And so
Yeah.
many people practice speaking posher and wealthier than they
Huh.
are to
Hmm.
to get a better and more well just a better response and better circumstances. So like if you went into a restaurant and you spoke with very good English, you would get treated better than if you went in with just your common everyday English.
Hmm. Well, I guess this is true in any language because
Is it that? Yeah, that's what
accent.
my question is. It?
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. Well, I don't have any stats or research paper that says so, but language, like your accent, tells a lot about you and who you are and where you come from. So we're getting into applied linguistics here, but I mean, it's a natural thing that happens in our when we hear accents.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Some accents are even discriminated. Like some people who have an accent, like
yeah.
non-native English teachers. I I've never been um, left out because of this, but I know of I had a colleague from China who was rejected because she had a Chinese accent, and so they said, you can't
Wow,
you can't teach English because you have this thick
accent.
accent,
Ah,
which is a shame. But it
yeah,
happens,
yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah.
still happens.
Okay. have
Yeah.
you ever seen the film? I think it's My Fair Lady, a very old film from the
No.
70s, 80s. Well, in that film, there's some gentlemen who have a discussion about whether they can make this lady, who's very common, appear in appearance and sounding very, very posh. And that's
Hmm.
kind of the basis of the film. That's
Hmm.
quite a fun to watch the transition. But yeah, like you said of linguistics. Okay, yeah, interesting subject, very interesting subject. All right. So I asked you previously as well about when you hit your hand with a hammer or you stub your toe, and naturally do you swear in Italian or now do you swear in English? And the same about dreaming. If you dream, do you dream in Italian? Do you dream in English?
Yeah, both, I would say. More in Italian, but I would say both. I had dreams in English, but when I swear, sometimes I swear in English, but if you're Italian, you know the Italian the Italians swear much better than
Okay, okay.
than anyone in the world, I would say, because we get so creative with
Yeah.
insults and yeah. So when I need to get it all out, it's Italian. It's Italian.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That
Yeah.
passion, that expression.
Mm.
So, talking of expression, what
Mm.
expressions do you prefer to use Italian for? So if you're speaking with another person that speaks Italian and English, and you had to think of you had a situation to describe, would you
Mm.
prefer to describe it in Italian because maybe it's more creative and flowery and descriptive, or would you prefer to say something in English which is more poignant and direct and to the point?
If the other person is Italian, you mean?
Yeah,
So the other
and English. Yeah, yeah.
and
So
English.
what I'm trying to
Mm.
get at is there phrases you prefer for English that are more concise, or
Yeah.
phrases in Italian that you feel
Yeah.
are more concise that you come across regularly?
Yeah. Sometimes, okay, when I see things, when I watch or read things in English, and then I have to explain or I want to um, share with my girlfriend, for example, what I read or what I watched, I find it very hard to explain it in Italian because it was in English.
Okay. Yeah.
So I might start in Italian, and then there is a word that I cannot translate from English into Italian, so I use it in English, and then I keep going, and it's frustrating because I end up mixing the languages, and the result is a really bad story. But there are words in English that can convey the meaning much much more concisely and more precisely than in Italian. I cannot tell you which ones because it always depends. It depends on what I'm talking about. But I found myself many times in that situation where I had to use an English word because it was more like that. For example,
Yeah.
let's see if I can give you an example. Um, Very hard, very hard to come up on the
Feel like
spot.
I've put you on the spot a bit. Sorry.
Mm, well, no, I cannot give you any examples at the moment. But there are many words. There are many words.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay.
Sorry,
Uh,
Paul.
that's no problem. No problem. I'm thinking. So. All right. My next question then is, what part, if any, of English language do you find superfluous? Um,
Hmm.
Yeah, and then well, I got another question after that. So are there parts of English that you think that's too many words to describe something, or that just isn't as direct? Kind of like the opposite of what we were just saying, really.
No, I would no, because Italian is a very wordy language. Like we use many more words to I find, okay, this is not a fact, but this is what I find. This is what I think. we use many more words to express a concept. English is much
Ah,
more
okay.
lean, okay, more
Ah,
to the
okay.
point,
Ah.
and that's why that's why I like it. It's a I like to say it's a minimalist language. Like it's the language of minimalism because it's to the point.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't need
okay.
any extra flowery adjectives or but
But
of course it depends on what you're talking about as well. Like if you're an author, I guess like Stephen King to describe a situation, a place, well, you can use
mm,
a lot of adjectives. You
yeah,
it
yeah.
depends on your style, it depends on what you're talking about. But generally, I would say Italian is more intricate, more
Wordy.
wordy. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. That's because I was going to say the same thing. Depending on who you are and what the
Yeah.
context is, depends on how elaborate you make something. And
Hmm.
some people, like I was saying earlier, some people like to use more interesting words to make themselves sound more interesting and to elaborate and be more well, just interesting, really. And yet we understand that some people have a more maybe Germanic or Finland or those kind of places where they're very direct with their
Hmm.
message, and they don't
Hmm.
sugarcoat it and it's not flowery.
Hmm.
So yeah, it
Hmm.
depends on who you are and what your object is. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
moving on slightly now with this question, what kind of languages or voices do you like that are nice and pleasant to the ear, like harmonic sounds? So many of my students have talked about David Attenborough and is
Yeah.
very
Like him. Yeah.
gentle. Yeah, and some people really like, and I like the Welsh with their harmonic sounds and their harmonic voices. They're very known for their choirs. Is there a
Hmm.
specific language you like or accent you like that you find very harmonic and soothing? Like if you're going to choose an audiobook, you'd be like, oh, I'd like to listen to them.
When I listen to articles on Medium, on a platform called Medium, I always select the Australian accent because that's my favorite. That's
Ah,
still my favorite.
okay.
The Australian accent, and also because I'm still attached to Australia. I told the story actually on my podcast at the beginning when it was about telling stories about photos, how much I'm attached to the country, and that's probably why I I prefer that accent. But
Okay.
when I was in London, I liked the British accent a lot. I used to listen to uh, you and yours. I think it was
All
you
right.
and
Okay.
yours. Like it was a channel 4 on BBC Radio 4. It was a program about um, current affairs, and
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I know
I,
it. Yeah.
I really loved especially the women's accent.
Oh,
Really loved that.
interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
And what about your partner? Does she have a favorite accent?
No, my partner doesn't like English at all. So no, she doesn't. She doesn't like English. She didn't like not studying it, speaking it, and also because I was when she landed in Australia, I'd already been there for 4 months, and I wasn't a teacher at the time, and I used to correct her. So she came to Australia.
So is she from
My,
Italy as well?
yeah, she's Italian,
Oh, okay, okay.
and when she landed in Australia, um, I remember correcting her mistakes, and she would just shut up. Then I realized, of course, and this is a story. It's in the book as well. I say that I didn't know how correction worked because you need to be gentle. You need to correcting someone's mistake is a big deal, especially if you don't know how the other person might respond. Like before, like when I corrected your when you said pedagogy, maybe you're right, and we have to check. But anyway, um, that inhibited her her abilities probably to speak English, because she thought, okay, I'm here, I don't know the language, this guy here is trying to correct me now, I don't want to be corrected, I hate English. So probably not the best start for her to, yeah.
But that's nice. That's nice to have a bit of a balance. So,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
everybody likes
exactly.
the same thing.
And
Okay,
still
okay.
to this day she feels quite uncomfortable when I'm around, and she has to speak English, because sometimes we have
Ah,
friends who come to
yeah.
visit us here. So yeah.
Okay, okay. Interesting. All right. Okay. So we're running out of time. So I'm just gonna ask the last sort of question now is and I'd like to ask where do you see the future for you? So I mean obviously you got a book. Do you have other books? Are you thinking expanding your website and services? Would you
Yeah,
stay in Italy?
yeah, I'm staying in Italy for sure. I see myself writing a lot more in the future, and working with writers, non-native English writers as well. I see myself starting writing programs, even, well, I've already got one, but writing communities where we read out our texts, our writing, and then we even publish this writing.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, this is where I'm heading towards, and I'm already a freelance writer, because I write for websites, language learning websites, and publications. So that will stay. And what else? Well, another book for sure. I'm now writing my master's. This is hard to say. Master's dissertation, um, in language education. So it's this academic piece is longer than my book. So I first need to finish
Wow. Okay.
this thing, and it's academic writing, so it's nothing too creative. But I like the focus, because it's about, again, it's a research into how ChatGPT can help um, non-native English writers. So it's an investigation. The title is an investigation into the use of ChatGPT.
Ah, okay.
So yeah,
And would you ever
all
like
these.
to have one of your stories made into a short film
Wow, that would be
or to
great.
get
Mm.
or to be get a lot bigger, maybe write it
Mm.
into a play or something like that?
Nice, because wow, thank you for mentioning this, because I work at the in a university in Milan. It's called um okay, it's an art university. Okay, I won't give you the Italian name, but it's there are many filmmakers there, because one of
Ah,
the faculties is one of the subjects is movie making. So there are a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of aspiring directors,
Ah.
and now I'm thinking, well, I can give them my
Have we
little
planted a
book.
seed?
Sorry.
Have we planted a seed?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you've definitely planted one in my mind now, because I'm thinking I can ask one of my students if they want to turn my book into a like a short animated movie. That would be cool.
I would watch that. I
Yeah,
would pay to watch that.
yeah. Not now though. First, I have things to finish, like this dissertation. But yeah, thank you.
Okay,
It's
okay.
actually a cool idea. Hmm.
All right. So on that positive note, let's end it there. And I want to say, well, if you just say thank you very much, and if you give my audience a little wave, I'd
Of
appreciate
course,
that.
Paul's
Thank you very
audience.
much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for
Thank you.
listening. Thanks, Paul, for
Okay.
having me. It
No,
was great. Thank
thank
you.
you. And I'll put the links in the comments section below. All right. So
Right.
to everybody listening or watching today, thank you very much. and we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.